In this tutorial, we improve the random spawning of game objects by eliminating overlap spawns in small batches of objects and reducing overlap chances in large batches. Alrighty everyone, to start off with, we're going to go into the agent controller here. And just below the create pellet function, we're going to create a new function. We're going to call it CheckOverlap. So we'll do a private bool CheckOverlap, and we're going to want to pass in 3 items here. 2 of them are going to be the objects, or more specifically the object positions that we want to check, which will be the pellet that we're spawning in and whatever object we want to be away from. So in this case, other pellets or the agent. And then we're going to want the minimum distance that we want them to be from. So we're going to pass in a vector3, and I have really long names here that I'm just going to copy and paste in. You're more than welcome to put shorter names, or you could use the same names if you want. So we have object we want to avoid overlapping. We have a vector3 called already existing object. That's what we're comparing against. And we have a float min distance wanted. That's going to be the minimum distance that we're going to want in between. Inside of the function here, we're going to find out what the distance is between the 2 objects. Because right now we don't know. We know where we want to go. We know where something already is, and we know the minimum distance that we need to have, but we don't know what the actual distance is to compare. So let's make a float, and we're going to call it distance between objects. And we're going to set it equal to vector3. Actually, we're going to set it equal, I should say, to the result of vector3.distance. This is calling the distance function from the vector3 class. And what we're going to compare is the object we want to avoid overlapping with the already existing object. And voila, we now have the distance between objects. So we can use it. Make an if statement. And let's check the min distance wanted and see if it is less than or equal to the distance between objects. If it is between them, we're just going to return true. If it is not between them, then we will just return false. And this function's done. It's as easy as that. We literally just want to know if it's less than or equal to, return true. And if this fails, we don't need to have another if condition because there's only 2 outcomes, and so it'll obviously be false if it's not true. So now we can go back up to our create pellet function, and we'll create a couple little variables for it. We're going to, in here, in this for loop, we're going to have an int counter. We're going to set it equal to 0, so that way every time we loop through, it should reset to 0. And we're going to have a bool distance good. And we don't really care about setting it by default because the first time we use it, we're going to set it to something. So now down here, before we ever set the transform location to the pellet location, we obviously want to check to see if it's good. But before we even check to see if it's good, we want to make sure that we actually, need to check. Is if it's the first one, it's not 9f. If it's the first one being spawned, then obviously we don't need to check. So if spawned pellets list dot count does not equal 0, so if it is not empty, then we're going to want to check everything. And what we're going to do to check, we're going to compare the object we want to spawn to every object that's already spawned in. We're going to have another for loop. The for int k equals 0, and you can name that variable whatever you want. You can, if you want, name it something kind of like new pellet or distance good, something that it tells you what it is. I'm used to just giving for loops arbitrary values because I know they're just counters and index values. So it's not, too important to me to name them other things other than, I, J, K. Those are generally, that's the most I really ever need to do is, at most a nested loop of 3. but we're going to have a for loop of k. K is going to be, we want k to be less than the spawned pellet list count. And if it passes, then, you know, that's why we want to exit, because we don't want to be checking outside the bounds of an array. That's just going to throw us an error. And so inside of this loop, we're going to have a counter going. So that way we don't end up going for infinity in the event that we can't place a pellet. Because that's never good, unless that you want to crash the program, in which case, you know, just remove the counter and spawn enough and you'll be good. So distance good. We're going to finally set this to something. We're going to set it to check overlap. And we're going to pass in the pellet location. And we're going to pass in the spawned pellets list. But we're not going to pass in the whole list, because obviously this isn't a list here. It's not a list of vector 3s. It's just a vector 3. So we're going to pass in this one specific index that we're on, that we're comparing to. And then we want to pass the min distance value. We're going to do a float of 5. I know this is technically an integer, but we're giving it an F. So it's a float. We could always change it to, you know, like 5.1 if we wanted to. Did I spell this wrong? Oh, that's why. We're telling it that we want vector 3s, but we're passing in game objects. You could do it this way if you wanted to. And then down here, basically, you tell it, you know, dot transform, dot position, and all of that. But we don't want to do that. We are going to do it up here. So dot transform, dot local position, doing this vector 3 does not contain transform. Am I spelling that wrong? I don't think so. Oh wait, never mind. Sorry about that. Pellet location already is a transform. So there we go. This. There we go. And we're done with that part. We have this distance good now. We know if it's going to overlap or not. So let's do something with that information. If distance good is not good, so false, then we're going to want a new location. We're going to do pellet location, and we're going to set it equal to a new random location. So we'll just copy and paste this code here. New location, and then we're going to decrement our value, because we're obviously, this value right here, it was not good with. So we're going to want to check that again and see if it's good. And if it is, then we'll keep going. So we'll check there, and then we'll increment the counter. So counter plus plus. And now what if we, you know, what if we meet this counter? What do we do then? That's why we have an else statement. So if the counter ever, you know, is above 10, so this fails and we don't do this, then we're just going to set k equal to the spawned pellets list dot count. So that way we exit. You could probably just use like a pass, or is it called exit in this? Or a break call in order to break out of it. But I'm just setting it to the max, and then it'll exit there. And we have, you know, the position just being set to whatever the last position was, because, you know, at this point, there's nowhere to spawn it, or at least nowhere that, you know, it's going to take more than 10 attempts. I don't want to waste any more time on it, any more resources. So we're just going to spawn it in, add it to the list, and call it good. So let's test that out. See what we get. So we'll go over to prefabs. Wait for it to load. Prefabs, environment, go to the agent. Is there anything we need to fill in here? No, it does not look like it. So we'll go back, select this agent. It's on, okay. we'll want to actually go back here and set this to heuristic without messing with these copies. Select this guy just so we can keep an eye on him. And hit play. And see if everything spawns well. And I don't think we set debug values. No, it's just spawned, but no errors at all. Everything spawned here. So then let's just see if we can get anything to spawn right on top of each other. Everything seems to be, we might have spawned inside it. That might have been the issue. Yep, because see how close that one spawned to us. When I was spawned inside it or walked right through it, but nothing is overlapping. Which, maybe it's just like, oh, well, yeah, you only have 3 spawning in. Let's do 10. 10 at this point, there'll probably be some overlap because of the distance. But you see none of those overlaps, but they do probably get closer than the distance that we wanted. That's good. Let's do 20 now. Let's see what happens with 20. See, in most of them, they're not really overlapping. If we look here, one's getting very close. This is far closer than a distance of 5. 5, I think, is probably like the distance between these two. So with our current code, they can still overlap and we just give up, essentially. But I think it's better to do that than to potentially, go into an infinite loop or end up with less than we want. Because we could instead, let me exit here. If we wanted to, instead of just, giving up and spawning in, we could just say, no, we're not going to spawn it, just skip. But we want them to spawn. We want to have the full amount each time, even if we have to give in to them overlapping. I'm sure there's fixes for that. I'd love to hear from you guys if you take on the challenge to figure out, how to prevent the overlap completely while getting everything spawned in, unless, it's completely packed. It'd probably just be using this CheckOverlap function and being like, okay, once we do this, do it again, but we're going to lower our standards this time, like maybe a 0.7 distance or something like that. Oops, not 1, we want a 5 there. Like a 0.7 or a 1 or something, just be like, all right, we'll settle for that. But so then we have this going now. So the only thing left is to, check for the player, or not the player. I mean, we can be the player like we were just now, but the agent. Is we'll want to avoid overlap with the agent as best we can. We're just going to add in another boolean, bool, and we're going to call it already decremented. Now, why do we have this one? And we're going to set it to false to start off with. Well, I'll show you why we have this one. So we're going to go down and essentially just going to copy and paste this again. And we're going to paste it above the counter. And we're going to take away the pellet location. Do we want to take away the pellet? No, I did this wrong on my own copy. We're going to want the agent position. But you might be like, wait, we don't have an agent position. Unless we call it the transform.local position, we could do that. But we're actually going to do something a little different. We're going to do similar to what we did here with pellet location. We're going to adjust this. We'll just copy this. And I believe we just have it return the value. We'll leave it as how I have it right now, and then we'll see how that turns out. That's how I have it. I have it equal to agent position. Let's just do it the non-fancy way. We're going to do transform dot. Let's do local position, and just see how that works. Transform dot local position. So we're going to pass the pellet location. Oh, I see. I wrote all of this just a little bit ago, and I'm honestly kind of tired from it. Because if we're checking this pellet location, we're going to be checking it every single time. Okay, I was looking over it. I don't know why I have it with the spawn list instead of the pellet location. We want pellet location. If it's false, then we're going to set it to a new value, but we're not going to do this yet. Because if we did this and it already failed, and we're checking this again, we don't want to go back 2 spaces. Then that's just, it's going to run up the counter. And that can quickly, end up with half the counter that we actually want. So instead, we're going to check if already decremented. And if it equals to false, so we haven't done it yet, then we're going to do this. And we should also up here, which I realized I forgot to do in my original code, I'm going to set this and set it equal to true because, we've done it. So then we'll go and we'll save and just see up here, if every time we loop, it'll get set to false again. So that should be good. Let's test it out. So we'll save this, clear, and it's heuristic. So it's spawn in and see what happens. There we go. Spawned. We'll probably want to spawn in a few more. Yeah, it's just, actually, it's not going to tell us. We should add in a debug. Add in a debug to see if already decremented. We don't need that one there. We can do here debug.log. I'm going to say too close to other pellet. Sounds like a good debug. We're going to copy and paste it here. And we're going to say too close to agent. So up here, we already have the location for the agent. Initially, why I was going to do the, the variable for this and stuff was I was going to change the agent spawn based on the pellets. And I was like, no, we should have the agent spawn there. And so that was just leftover stuff that I didn't catch before doing this. Too close. Let's get rid of some of the other ones. We don't need to know about it being spawned. That works. Any other? Let's actually just do this and see any other debugs. Now here, we don't need to see how many are left. I think that should be all of them. Yep. And so then let's see, it's too close, too close. That's good. And well, actually, since we're looking at all of the outputs and everything, let's make a couple of lists just to see the distance for everything. So we'll create them right here because they're just going to be temporary ones. We're not going to keep them. So public list, it's going to be of type float, and we're going to call it distance list. I'm going to set it equal to a new list of type float. And let's copy and paste this and set it to, and call it bad distance list. And then here, when we return true, we're going to do distance list dot add, and we will add the distance between objects. And now we're going to do the exact same thing, but with the bad list. So it'll be bad distance list, and we'll add that there. And then we will go up to the create pellet list, and we can do distance list here, and just call dot clear. And we'll do the same thing with bad distance list. So that way, every time we call this the spawn, or every time basically on episode begin, it'll clear. We don't want it to clear too soon where we don't get to see it. We don't want to not ever clear it because then the list will just grow forever. And so yeah, let's run now and see what it looks like. You can see here, a bad distance list and a good distance list. The bad ones actually, yeah, we had quite a few that tries. This is the first time I've had it with only 3, where it's just there's too many that were too close to each other, and so it took that many tries to get them far apart. That's interesting. Every time that I did it in my testing for, only 3 or for 2, I never had any, fight. I never had this happen. Actually, wait, 2, 1, 3. Actually, yeah, those shouldn't be. There's something going on here. We're passing. Oh, actually, no, that could be bad distance because of. Actually, I cleared this. I shouldn't have cleared it. Getting too close to the agent. Too close to agent. There's 7 of them. Too close to other pellet. Yeah, that's interesting. There's only 3 spawning in, but is it just luck? It might just be luck of the draw, random. Like eventually, I was gonna have this happen to me. Oh, this one's not clearing. Actually, look how big it's getting. Oh no, it is. Are we overlapping at all? So we clear it. Creating it. Yeah, it's interesting. But as you can see, it appears that the code is in fact working. In fact, let's adjust this a little bit. How many do we want to spawn in? Let's spawn in 30 and just see. There, see, now they're starting to overlap because it gives up. And look at how many bad tries it did. That's why we want to have the, oh wait, that was all the good ones. Why are there so many? Oh, because when it goes through a good spawn, yeah, it's going to go multiple times. It'll go with a good spawn here, but then a bad spawn there. We had nothing spawned on top of here. In fact, they all seem to be, okay, there we go. There's some that are close. I was going to say, they're all kind of spawning far away. But yeah, now we have this, and we don't necessarily need to do any training here because, it's just, we're just adjusting the environment. But yeah, that's going to be it for this tutorial video. I hope that you all enjoyed and found it useful. I'm sorry that I got a little thrown off. This one, for some reason, I think writing it through, I didn't go over it enough times where I wrote it too long ago and then added on to it this morning. I'm throwing myself off with keeping track of what I was doing. But yeah, I hope that you all enjoyed. If you did, I'd love to just hear if you're experimenting with it as well, the code. I'd love to hear about that. Hear about, if you're finding any finds or if there's anything you think I should do to, oh, hey, I could, do this to improve. Oh, hey, maybe you should add this in the future and stuff. Because I'm still building this. I'm getting pretty caught up with my my own copy of this, and which I'm thinking I'm actually going to put on hold, so then that way I can get this caught up and then do that. And I think the next part's going to actually be pretty exciting, because if we look at our agent, this list is getting massive because of so many pellets. Let's knock that down to 6. But if we do this, you can see he kind of hesitates a little bit and he's not very quick. Figured out a way to make him faster. We won't see it next time, but maybe the time after. Actually, next time you'll see a way to make him a little bit faster, but to make him really fast, like really booking it, I figured out. I figured out a way to do it. And so, yeah, I hope to see you all, or I hope that you all will, like that episode, because it's going to take a good bit of work to build it, but it's a really nice outcome. I still got to tweak some things to figure out a good balance. I'm thinking of, I don't want to spoil anything, so I'm thinking of just adding some balance elements, make it kind of gamey. Like a lot of the game mechanics are going to get added in. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I haven't done it yet. Yeah, I hope to see you all in the next few videos. See ya.